Hello and welcome to today's workshop for Nursing 219. My name is Rose from the Academic Language and Learning Success Program, and today I'm going to be conducting an online workshop to help you unpack and structure your assignment. The objective for today's session are to help you understand the essay question, to help you understand how to correctly search for relevant literature for your essay, to help you to understand how to successfully structure and plan your assignment, and lastly, to help you start writing a section of your assignment. The outline for today's workshop will be firstly to interpret and plan your essay, secondly, searching for relevant literature in relation to your essay. Then we're going to look at critical reading, critical thinking, and critical writing, and putting that into practice for writing. Firstly, I'd like to give you the 11 steps that I have put together for how you should think about tackling this assignment. Most importantly, you should have read the task and not just read it once and gone, yes, I understand it. Try and read it a number of times, each time with the intention of understanding more and more of what the question is asking you. Once you've understood this stage, then you can start to highlight the keywords of the task. Then, writing and explaining the task in your own words. We then move into researching, writing notes, planning, and it is not until step 8 that we actually start writing the actual essay. We then rework it, edit and proofread. It's important to know that these are two separate steps. And finally, we get to submission. Firstly, what I'd like you to do is make sure that you've got a copy of the assignment task, so you can read it as part of the steps of today's workshop. What I'd like you to do with the task is read it more than once firstly, and once you're comfortable with it, I want you to highlight the key words in that assignment task. What are they is your first task. Then I want you to test yourself that you understand what the key words mean. Once you have done this, you're ready to move on to the next step. Your next challenge is to put the task in your own words. Can you explain in 2 to 3 short sentences what the task is asking you to do? You should not simply just rewrite what the task is that you've been given by your lecturer. You need to be able to explain what is expected within the task in your own words. So take the time now to stop and complete that task. It is important that you do it because it forms a large section of your unpacking the task. When you're writing these 1 to 2 sentence summary of what the task is asking, if you're struggling, think about, well, what's the purpose of the task? Why have you been asked to write this essay? And what do you need to do to answer what's being asked of you? Once you've understood the expectations of what the task is asking, it allows you to be able to mind map and unpack the task to prepare you for the writing stages. So once you've pulled out those keywords, you should then start to see what the task is forming. Okay? What's the question starting to look like that you have to give a response to? You will have seen that there was keywords that were really important, such as therapeutic communication skills, relationship. Okay? These are the kind of things that you must understand what they mean in order to be able to develop them in the task. What has been put together is a mind map for you. And you'll be able to access this mind map after the workshop to ensure that you can start to brainstorm these ideas. Okay? Overarching what this task is expecting you to do is understand therapeutic communication techniques or skills. What are they? This is something that you need to explore further before you start writing the task. The mind map has given you some trigger questions. Well, what is therapeutic communication and why might it be important to answering this task? What communication techniques do you think are most relevant to building a therapeutic relationship with Vinay? Why are they then important? If you can write notes under this heading, this is going to help you when it comes to writing the task. The more time you spend on planning this, the easier the writing will be. Okay? Underneath that is where you can further unpack various communication skills, what you know about each, how each of these communication skills can in fact help to build a therapeutic relationship. You may also need to use one of these boxes to explain what a therapeutic relationship is. So in your lectures, you would have started to discuss what therapeutic communication is. Is it patient-centered? Is it effective? Is it genuine? Is it goal-directed? Are any of these going to be relevant to this task? If so, you need to start to unpack them further. What are some types of therapeutic communication skills or techniques? Does it involve verbal communication? And what types of verbal communication can be explored? Does it involve non-verbal communication techniques? Okay? What are these communication techniques that may be useful in building a therapeutic relationship with Vinay? Is it paralinguistic cues? Is it listening? Is it suggesting? Is it restating? Is it reflection? Is it touch? Are there particular ones that are going to be most relevant in answering this question? You won't have time nor need to explore every single communication skill that you've been given. Your task is to select the most important that can help you answer the question thoroughly. You then have been asked to think about what literature links to what you know about these communication skills. So the first question is what you know about it, what you understand by these communication techniques. But then this is where you'll need to start finding literature to link to what you already know, to start to support this argument, to start to explain how this is going to link to help you explain how you can build a therapeutic relationship with Vinay. So what we can see here is we're not simply going to be just describing what Vinay is experiencing. We're proving how we can use communication skills to build a relationship. After we've been able to fill in these boxes about communication skills, we then need to tie in the next most important keyword from the task, and that's a therapeutic relationship. So what you can then do is use the mind map to answer some more questions and find some more literature to support this. And this question is, how will the above communication techniques or skills help to build a therapeutic relationship? Why is this important? And what literature have you found that supports that it's important and how you can build such a therapeutic relationship? You might also start to think about, well, why is it particularly important to this question that you've been asked to answer? And finally, on the mind map, we need to think about how it might be relevant to the case study that you've been given. How might you apply these skills to build a relationship, particularly to Vinay? What have they told you about Vinay that tells you that that particular communication skill is most relevant to creating a therapeutic relationship? How could you best apply it to Vinay to build that relationship? And does your literature also support this conclusion or these assumptions that you've made? Okay? We can't just make them without having literature to support them. And that's the final box that you may use to fit that criteria. This shows the importance of needing to really step through the keywords and unpack them to make sure that you stay on track when you're going through answering this essay question. So I suggest the more time you spend on planning, the less time you'll spend on having to write, because you've done a lot of writing in your note making. Moving back now, once you've been able to mind map, you can then use that to search for literature, or you can use it complementary. You might need to start doing that as you go, but you need some strategies to be able to search successfully and effectively. You may choose to link some keywords together with traditional Boolean operators, okay? So when you join two words, for example, therapeutic communication and, in capitals, relationships, or therapeutic relationships and therapeutic communication, you're saying that these two terms need to be present in the search results that it yields. If you use or, for example, therapeutic communication or therapeutic communication skills or relationships, you're telling the search engine that only one of these terms needs to be present in the results that it yields. So it's important that you make sure that you are aware of these when you're looking for particular results. Where should you start when you start searching for literature? Your textbook is a really great starting place for definitions, to make sure you understand the main theories and concepts that are going to be used in this task. As you're seeing, there's a common thread between therapeutic relationships and therapeutic communication skills. So using your textbook for those definitions and a starting point may be useful. Online search tools, and the library has many of those. You can also consult directly with your liaison librarians if you're struggling to find search information. Databases, academic and peer-reviewed journals. Keep in mind an objective. What are you trying to gain from finding this information? Is it knowledge? Is it to develop particular ideas that you have around the topic? And it's really important that you not only just read this information, but you have to be able to make reference to it in your essay. Summon is a really important place to start searching when you're doing it. Following this workshop, I'm going to be giving you another short 5-minute video on how to do a search for the literature. I'm not going to take the time in this class to do it, but I'm going to do it in conjunction with the liaison librarians. But it is a starting point, and it's really a useful tool to yield academic and peer-reviewed journals to make sure that you are using credible literature. Again, APA is the prescribed style for nursing, and it's really important that you strictly follow those guidelines. You can download the guide from the library website. Okay, it's important that your reference list at the end, the complete reference list, is on a new page of your document. Make sure that you follow the correct in-text citations. Important things to remember as you go is collect all the referencing details so you don't lose them, and you can write the reference next to the notes that you've written for that particular source. Okay? Compare research from different papers. Don't just pick one. Compare what you're finding in multiple papers, and this is really useful when you'll have to do the analysis in your essay. It's going to help you avoid just describing information from those articles and other sources. Okay? Why are you reading the literature? Think about, is it for a definition? Are you trying to support a particular argument that you're making? Okay? It's going to help you make sure you search for literature that's relevant to the line of argument that you're going to be taking. And remember, you can use your textbook for the course. That is acceptable, but keep in mind you will need other sources as well. But it can be a source that you can reference. I'm now going to move on to how you might structure this essay. On the screen is a visual of what an essay structure looks like, and what you'll see is it's not just square boxes. What we see is an introduction takes a particular shape, and we have to present the information in a particular way that an academic essay is expected to be presented in. Our body paragraphs, the visual shows that they take the same structure, okay? And the conclusion, again, it looks similar, but it's quite different to our introduction. We're now going to move on to unpack what an introduction involves and how you can use that mind map that we discussed not long ago to form a really great essay structure. Essay introductions are made up of 3 parts. For your essay, it will be 1 paragraph. Based on your 1500 word limit, I would suggest that your introduction is 10% of that, so no more than 150 words, and it should only be 1 paragraph. So when I talk about background or orientation, thesis statement, and outline, we're talking about 3 sections that make up 1 paragraph. Your introduction is really your first impression to the reader, and it's your chance to convince them that you understand the question that's been set and you have a clear line of argument that you're going to take with that particular essay. It's also really important that your introduction gives away, it doesn't leave any surprises for us as we go through the body paragraphs. You're going to tell us up front what you're arguing and how you're going to present that information. We don't like surprises, that's why a really good introduction avoids any of that. The first section of an introduction is usually the first 1 to 3 sentences, and this is our background or orientation. Now this is usually general statements or statements which introduce your topic and provide some background information. It's not really general information that has no relevance to the topic. So in this case, we're not looking for really vast statistics about mental health or mental illness. That doesn't link to what you've been asked to do. It still needs to think about therapeutic relationships and therapeutic communication skills and why they might be relevant in mental health nursing. Okay, so think about what the overarching topic is for this essay, and that's what you're going to be writing about in your background or orientation, starting to lead the reader to what you're going to prove. Okay, it's setting the scene for your argument that's going to come in your thesis statement. Some tips that I put together for writing your background for your essay. Okay, always go back to your mind map as a guide. It should have the overarching ideas or themes that you need to address in this essay. You don't need to start with this essay. You can lead in with this background information that will lead in, like I said, to your thesis statement. I know it's an essay. By simply saying this essay, it almost becomes redundant. If that's something you need to include to feel confident though, you can include it. Try and make it interesting and engaging to the reader. This is how you draw them into your topic that they want to read more about in the body paragraphs. Again, there's no need to use excess words, less is more. No more than 3 sentences is absolute maximum for an essay this length for some background or orientation. Try and stick to that and you're well on track for a good introduction. Moving on to a thesis statement now, and this is by far my favourite part of an introduction, and it's what creates a really good introduction. If you have a well-structured and clear thesis statement, it tells your reader that you've understood the task and you have something to prove. I therefore think a thesis statement really is the most important part of not only your introduction but your essay, because this is what you're going to prove in every paragraph of the body of your essay. It also gives focus to the essay, not only to you as the writer but also to the reader. This is where you introduce your main topic or your argument for your essay. Think of it as, what's the purpose of this essay? What are you going to prove to your reader? And this is what helps give the audience and you as the writer of the essay a focus. This is what you have to prove all the way throughout your assignment. Tips for writing a thesis statement. Again, go back to your mind map. This is where you've unpacked what you have to answer, okay? And this is where you form your answer to that question. How are you going to prove or answer this question that you've been asked? How are you going to talk about the importance of therapeutic communication skills in order to build a therapeutic relationship? And this is where you put that into a statement. It should be no more than 2 sentences, absolute maximum. Ideally, it's generally only 1 sentence. Again, you can try to avoid using this essay. If you need that to make your thesis statement write better for yourself, you can include it, but it's not necessary. It really does need to be clear and concise. The clearer and more concise it is, it suggests that you really understand what the topic is asking. It's only a 1500 word essay, so you should be able to sum up what your argument's going to be in this 1, maximum 2 sentences. When you think about putting together your thesis statement, think about it as something that you're going to prove or disprove. In this case, you're most likely going to be proving something, and that's how you can apply therapeutic communication skills to build a therapeutic relationship, okay? And you're going to give reference to Vinay's case, but that's not the main part of the question, okay? You're not describing what you're going to do, you're making an assertion. This is what I'm going to do. So it often includes things like demonstrate, explore, explain. We're making a claim as to what we're going to prove. And often you will include a because clause, okay? Therapeutic communication skills are important in creating a therapeutic relationship because they do this, for example. Okay, this is what you're going to tell your reader, is what you're going to prove. Okay, and often it has this clause in it to show why you're going to prove it. The last section of the outline complements your thesis statement. Okay, and that's your outline. Now, for a 1500 word essay, you're really looking at no more than, say, 2, maximum 3 sentences needed for an outline. If you can write your outline in less than 3 sentences, that's fantastic. This is where we tell the reader, but we're also telling ourselves as a reminder, how you're going to prove your argument, how you're going to prove your thesis statement. And this is what forms the subtopics of your essay. Now, it's really important that the order you list them in your outline is the order you're going to discuss them in the body paragraphs of your essay. So make sure that they have a logical flow, because that's the order you need to discuss them in. Okay? Again, go back to your mind map. You will have already unpacked what you need to talk about. What therapeutic communication skills do you need to apply to build a therapeutic relationship? Do you need to spend 1 paragraph unpacking the importance of a therapeutic relationship in this case? You will have unpacked that in that mind map, and now it's time for you to pull out your main arguments. Again, you don't need to say, firstly I'll discuss this, secondly this. The order you list them in is the order I expect you will discuss them in. But again, if it's a confidence thing and you'd like to include that to help you write, that's absolutely fine. Again, really important that you make it clear and concise. What exactly are you going to use to prove your argument? And make sure it links to what your thesis statement is. You should cover enough subtopics within the word limit. If you're going to cover 8 in 1500 words, that seems excessive and that you probably won't be able to analyze that many types of things or communication skills or aspects of therapeutic relationships in that time. I would think of 3 or 4 things to really analyze to prove your point. Over that suggests that you're not going to have enough words to be able to do that. On average, a paragraph would be 200 to 250 words. So you're looking at 4 or 5 paragraphs for the body of your essay. Now you need to think about putting together your introduction. We've talked about each of the sections and what you'd need to do. But what you need to now think of is how you can use that mind map and your answers to those questions on the mind maps to form an introduction. Now it's really important that you understand that this is just an example of how you might put it together. You're each going to have your own argument, so you're each going to have a different way of approaching this. But this is a sample of how you might put these ideas together from the mind map. You first might introduce your overarching topic. Importance of therapeutic communication in mental health nursing is one example. And I would spend 2 to 3 sentences doing that. I may need to include a reference if I have included my ideas from the textbook or another source, okay? And that is acceptable. If the idea has come from somewhere else and I've put it into my own words, I need to reference it. Your thesis statement and your outline should not need a reference. This is your own idea that you're going to prove and how you're going to prove it. Think back to your 2 to 3 sentence summary that you wrote earlier on. Now what's the purpose for writing this essay? What do you want to show and prove to your readers? What are you going to prove? Think about those tips and strategies about putting together a thesis statement. Are you looking at the importance in developing and using therapeutic communication skills to aid in building therapeutic relationships because of the need to establish positive relationships with patients in mental health during admission? What are you trying to prove in relation to that topic that you've been given? Are you trying to explain how to understand how communication skills contribute to creating therapeutic relationships? Do you need to develop trust with relationships such as VNA during admission? Okay. Think about what you really want to prove in relation to the topic you've been given. Your outline then should be informed by this. Or what topics are you going to discuss in order to prove that thesis statement? Remember, you would have already done this if you've completed your mind map. And it should only be 1 paragraph. And remember, your outline doesn't need to be excessive. What can be achieved in 1500 words? What is therapeutic communication? What skills are needed in mental health nursing? How to build a therapeutic relationship based on these skills? Are you going to link it to Vinay's case? Do you want to highlight that in your outline? Once you've outlined what you're going to prove in your thesis statement and planned the structure of your paragraphs, you can then start putting together your body paragraphs. The first sentence of each paragraph should be your topic sentence, and a topic sentence should relate to each of those topics that you've highlighted in your outline. After your topic sentence is your supporting and your evidence sentences, and this is where the bulk of your analysis will take place. Here you're not simply going to tell me what we already know about VNA. This is where you're going to draw on the literature to highlight to me what are the most important communication skills in order to build a therapeutic relationship. And this is where you're going to draw on different points of view from the literature to support the view that you've taken in your thesis statement. Finally, the last sentence of your paragraph will be your concluding sentence, where you evaluate and sum up what you've presented in this paragraph and then link into your next paragraph. Again, the order that your paragraphs will be in is the order that you've told me you're going to discuss them in your outline. Okay? How many paragraphs in this essay? Well, as many as you need to support your point. But remember, a paragraph is usually 200 to 250 words. So make sure you think about that rule of thumb when you're putting together your arguments. As you can see, body paragraphs always take the same form. Topic sentence, supporting evidence sentences, a concluding sentence which will link to each paragraph. Make sure you do follow the structure listed in your outline, and it needs to be a logical sequence and flow between paragraphs. Don't just describe facts, but you need to critically evaluate the literature. So how does that communication skill contribute to creating a therapeutic relationship? And why is that important in this case? Why is it important in proving your point? This will help ensure that each paragraph is well structured. If your paragraph doesn't contribute to proving your thesis statement, don't include it. Each paragraph must contribute to proving that thesis statement. And finally, it's really important that you use formal academic writing. So think about your word choices when you're doing it. Try not to be conversational, no personal pronouns, I and we, third person. It's really important that you follow that formal academic style. How do you know if you've written critically? What I've put together is some questions that you can test back on your writing to see if you have taken a critical analysis. Have you taken up a position? Is it proving that thesis statement that you set out at the beginning? Do you then have evidence and various literature to support what you're trying to prove? Okay. If you've made a claim, that's fine. Is it supported by some academic evidence? If you'd agreed or disagreed with something, make sure it's supported by evidence as well. And most importantly, make sure the evidence that you're presenting links to the topic that you've outlined in your topic sentence. Again, if it doesn't contribute to proving your thesis statement, rewrite it so it does, or don't include it. Okay, so how might you structure your body paragraphs? Again, it depends what you've included in your mind map, but if you have completed your mind map, you've already planned the structure. Topic sentence. You might refer to one of those subtopics you've unpacked on your mind map, and that may be the importance of active listening in creating therapeutic communication, and that might then link to creating a therapeutic relationship. So that's what you need to discuss in that paragraph, which would give you your evidence sentences. So how does this help build a therapeutic relationship? What does the literature say? How can I analyse this in relation to my topic? What aspects of active listening are really important in this instance? This must contribute to proving what you've set out to prove. It also evaluates what you have presented and will link to the next sentence. This is your concluding sentence, okay? You may like to make a summing up statement to say how this might be relevant, particularly to Vinay's case. You don't need to do this for every paragraph, link it to the case, but there might be some particular points in your paragraphs where it's most relevant to link back to Vinay's case and how it will be particularly relevant to building a relationship with him. Go back to that mind map. You will have identified things like paralinguistic cues. What is therapeutic communication? What aspects of it do you need to address in order to build a successful therapeutic relationship? If you've done your mind map well, putting your paragraphs together will be really simple because you've already got the answers to these questions in your notes on your mind map. Finally, moving on to conclusions. What you'll see is that conclusions look like the reverse of an introduction. So if you've spent time putting together a well-structured, well-supported, well-thought-out introduction, your conclusion has the potential to be equally as good and really bring your essay to a close. The first section of a conclusion, we can talk about confirming your thesis statement. In your introduction, you told the reader what you were going to prove. In your conclusion, you now need to point out what you have proven. Okay? That's why we usually see in conclusion, it has been shown that. We usually are able to tell the reader what we have successfully proven. Okay. Make sure it links to your actual thesis statement. If you didn't have one in your introduction, that's often why your conclusion will fall down. So it's really important that you actually spend time developing a thesis statement before you do any writing in your essay. The next is you need to summarize the main points that you've used to make this argument and prove your point. If you're unsure of how to do that, my suggestion is go back to each of your body paragraphs and sum it up in one sentence. And that can be used to put together your summary of your main points in your conclusion. Finally, then we need to make a concluding comment that takes us back to the overarching topic, and that overarching topic was what we outlined in our orientation and background information in our introduction. So think back to what was the overarching topic. Was it the importance of therapeutic communication in mental health nursing? What was it that we identified? And make a nice general comment to finish off our paper, finish off that essay. It doesn't need to be too broad. Remember what you outlined in your orientation and background, and you make a very similar comment to lead off to conclude your final section of your essay. The next section that I'm going to move on to is common problems that students experience with their academic writing and strategies to overcome it and improve their essays. There's 8 of them that I'm going to discuss today. Now the first 3 relate to problems with an introduction, and that's no thesis statement, no outline, and not addressing the question. If you've received this type of feedback in essays previously, most likely it's because you haven't read the task enough. You haven't unpacked or planned the task. You're not really clear of what the purpose is. It may be that you're not clear on how to write a thesis statement or how to write an outline. In order to overcome these problems, make sure you spend time reading and rereading the task, pulling out the key words. Answer the questions. What's the purpose of this task? What are you being asked to prove? Practice, practice, practice writing a thesis statement and an outline, and seek feedback on what you've written. I'll give you information later on how you can seek feedback from ALSP, but this is really important. Mind mapping is also essential to show that you can understand the elements and put them together in a task. What I'd like you to do is look at the statements that I've made on the screen. There's 3 of them. These are not thesis statements, but what I'd like you to do is think about how you could turn them into thesis statements. Think about the tips I gave you earlier on. Often we have to have an assertion. We need a because clause often, okay? It needs to be something that can be proven or disproven. What I've got on the screen is a bad example of this, and we need to rework it. So set yourself a task of stopping the recording and seeing if you can turn these into thesis statements. Okay? If you can do that, you'll be well on track to putting together your own individual thesis statement for this task. Now, I'm going to read you some examples, and they are only examples. You may have come up with something different, and that doesn't mean that you're wrong, but think about what I've included in my wording when I've put these together. The importance in developing and using therapeutic communication skills to aid in building therapeutic relationships because of the need to establish positive relationships with patients in mental stress during admission. Okay? That is something that can be proven and is achievable within a small word limit. It is essential to understand how therapeutic communication skills contribute to creating a successful therapeutic relationship because of the need to develop trusting relationships with patients, such as VNA, during admission. Okay? Again, a different way to present a thesis statement, and they all contribute to answering the question. This essay will discuss the importance of developing therapeutic communication skills as a key to a positive therapeutic relationship, particularly those displaying symptoms of schizophrenia. Okay? Again, I've changed the language to make it more academic and something that can be proven. Really important, practice, rewrite it. You're not going to get it right the first time you put together your thesis statement, but it's really important that you stop and reflect on your work. Try and rework it a number of times. And most importantly, ask for feedback if you're unsure if you're on the right track with your writing. The second set of problems is often unclear or not evident topic sentences, or your sentence is grammatically correct but it doesn't fit within the paragraph. Okay? If topic sentences are unclear or they're non-existent, it often suggests that you haven't gone through that mind mapping stage and thought out how you're going to prove your argument. So spend the time in the planning and mind mapping stage, and your paragraph structure will come to you. Okay? And it'll be linked directly to what you've been asked to do. If you're unsure of what a topic sentence is, practice and seek clarification, but hopefully I've addressed that in today's workshop. Okay? Maybe your paragraph doesn't have a purpose. Maybe it doesn't contribute to proving what you said you were going to prove in your thesis statement. So go back to your mind map and see if it's on that mind map, or you can make it more relevant to what you told me you needed to prove. Okay? Often you may have plagiarized your sentence. You've copy and pasted it thinking it links to your sentence, but it doesn't. You need to paraphrase to make it fit to your topic, to make it fit to what you're going to prove, and reference it. And that's really important. Okay, the next task for you is to have a look at the section that's been placed on the screen and have a think about how you could improve it and make it into a complete paragraph that links to the essay question. I'm going to read out some questions that I'd like you to think about as you rework this paragraph. Is the topic sentence clear? Is the evidence proving a thesis statement? Is the evidence academic and convincing? Is the concluding sentence summing up the paragraph, or is it unrelated? Does the paragraph link to the question that has been asked? Does the paragraph as a whole contribute to proving the thesis statement? If yes, okay, why? If no, why is it not relevant? Try and rework this, or at least be able to point out the problems in this paragraph, so you can try and avoid that in your own work. If you want feedback, you can certainly rework it and seek feedback on it. But if you can identify the problems in that paragraph, it's going to help you identify problems in your own work. The next set of problems linked to, and common feedback you may get from your lecturers, is you've been too descriptive with not enough analysis. Okay? Being too descriptive is where you've just described what authors have said about the information and not applied it to your topic. Again, if you've done your mind map and you've written notes, what has been asked of you from that mind map, that's going to help you be more analytical and less descriptive. Most likely, it may be also that you've read the reading but you haven't understood it and understood how that links to your topic and links to proving what you've been set out to prove in your thesis statement. Okay? Maybe you need to reread that reading a number of times, write notes on it, practice paraphrasing it, linking it to your topic, and then referencing. Maybe the literature isn't relevant to your task, okay? Maybe you have asked the wrong question of the literature. What's your purpose for reading that reading, okay? Try and apply different approaches and practice writing it in your own words to start linking it to proving your point. Most likely, again, if it's too descriptive and not enough analysis, you haven't made the link between what was said in the literature and how that relates to your topic, okay? If you're struggling with that, answer this question. How does what I just read link to my topic? And write a sentence or two on that. Then you can rephrase that to put it into your essay, but it's a good starting point on how to start avoiding description and becoming more analytical. Again, this is an example of too much description, okay? Think about how you might be able to improve that to make it less descriptive and more analytical. Think about maybe the topic sentence for starters isn't clear. I don't see any references, so I'm suggesting that there isn't any evidence, nor is it clear or convincing. Okay? It's simply just telling me what's wrong with the Vinay. It's just describing what I can read on the task sheet. Okay? It doesn't link, it's going off topic. It doesn't contribute to answering the thesis statement, and I definitely know it's not answering the task. Okay? It started to go off topic. I want you to think about how, though, we might be able to use the description that we give to give a deeper analysis. Okay, you've started and you've told me what, for example, is wrong with Vinay. But then how can we make that more analytical? How do what you know, what you've described about Vinay, link to literature? What do we know about people experiencing these conditions and the kind of communication skills we should use to build the most positive relationship with them? Okay, that's where the analysis ties in. Rather than making lots and lots of points and describing them in one paragraph, maybe one or two is enough, and then you can spend the rest of that paragraph analysing. Again, in this case, it is best to talk calmly and nicely to Vinay, is how I've concluded this example. That's not very academic, nor does it link back to a topic, okay? It doesn't give me any room to move in this paragraph. So go back to the structure we talked about in paragraphs, and that's going to help you as well. This is a good chance to reflect, to come back to this video and go over this again to make sure you can try and avoid this in your own work. Finally, these are referencing problems that are often common in your assignments, okay? Lots of secondary references. Now, in my first workshop, I discussed what secondary references were, and here you've got a visual of them. Holden as cited in Smith, Wilson as cited in Holden, okay? If you're overly using secondary references, it suggests that you don't really understand it as well, and we're talking about Smith's paraphrase of Holden, Holden's paraphrase of Wilson. It's best to be able to paraphrase Wilson or Holden yourself to make sure that you haven't got a paraphrase of a paraphrase and it becomes quite circular. Okay? The second one is really long URLs. Okay? Remember that we're looking for the author. If you're posting URLs in your in-text citation, you may not be following the guidelines correctly. Okay? So make sure you go back to the APA guide to avoid these problems and avoid unnecessary marks being deducted in your essay. Again, make sure you stop and review these when you come to the drafting and redrafting stage of your essay. Finally, think about printing this checklist and ticking it off to test yourself if you've really prepared the best essay possible. Okay? If you can successfully complete all these, it suggests that you're well on your way to answering the task correctly. And in addition, if you've completed that mind map thoroughly and spent a lot of time planning, you're well on the way to answering the task, okay? Improving it and analysing it. If you're still feeling a little unsettled by the task and not sure how to tackle it, my suggestion is attempt the mind map. Then, if you want a one-on-one consultation, go onto the ALS website and you're more than welcome to register and book in for a 50-minute consultation. Try and do this well in advance of the due date to give yourself time to work through the strategies and suggestions that ALS make as well. Your feedback really is important to us. If you can please follow the link provided to give your feedback of this workshop. Please do, when you give your feedback, select embedded workshop and then type NUR219 in the box below to make sure that we can link the feedback to this particular workshop. I really hope that you found it useful and gained some strategies from this. Again, if you do want further assistance, ALS are more than happy to help you, and we really do hope to see a number of you come and use our services and build on what you've taken from this workshop to produce a really, really well written and well thought out and well analysed essay. So all the best, and please do get in touch if you need additional help.